Hi, my name is Jimmy Williams with NFL Draft Diamonds. And I have a diamond in the rough for you guys to meet today. His name is Patrick Rogers. He is a defensive back out of Central Washington. Nice to meet you, sir.
Sure. Nice to meet you too.
Hey, nice to have you on. Certainly a player that I feel people need to get a chance to meet. Very successful, All-American, several time All-Conference player, and very successful overall. There in your conferences, I should say, because you've been in a couple of them.
Yeah.
Because of everything happening in all of college football, but Pat, why don't you go ahead and get us started? Tell us where you're from, and we'll go from there.
Okay, yeah. I'm from Tacoma, Washington, south of Seattle, about like 30, 40 minutes away. So it's like the little brother of Seattle.
Gotcha. And according to my notes, went to Lincoln High School there in the Tacoma area, and also part of a big family. I read on your profile you have like a million siblings, something like that.
Yeah.
Um, talk about that, man. Let's just get that out of the
Yeah.
way.
I have five brothers, three sisters. So that's eight siblings altogether, including me. So that's nine, nine of us all together. And I am the third oldest. Um, and yeah, like growing up, it was it was a lot to do, you know what I mean? Just because like you don't really need friends. We would go to the park, and when we play a basketball or football game, it would just be all of us put together versus whoever else was there. And so I think growing up with a big family, it just made me really family oriented and made me just appreciate, all the family, all the people in my family. And so yeah, it was pretty fun. Always had things to do, and it kind of made me tougher too because um I had a bigger brother that used to, like beat up on me. So
Don't we
yeah,
all?
it's
I
pretty
hear
fun
you.
having a big family.
Um, so nice to have a big family there, able to more or less make your own basketball team and a lot of other things, able to be very competitive. Went to Lincoln High School, and according to my notes, was also a part of the track and field team as well as the football team. So, talk about your time there in high school as a high school athlete.
So before I went to Lincoln, I did 2 years at Wilson,
Okay.
and that's when I had did track, a little bit of basketball, and then just when I was going through like a rough period my sophomore year, and that's when my older brother that I was talking about previously, he ended up passing away due to like gang violence and stuff, and so it was just like an unfortunate event, but it kind of just put me in like in a different mindset, in a different environment. And so I knew I wanted to play football, and Lincoln was kind of like running that area, running the city in terms of football. I had John Kitna there and stuff, and so I wanted to be a part of something, great, and wanted to take. I knew if I wanted to go to next level, Lincoln would be, the move, and so ended up transferring to Lincoln. But then unfortunately, John Kitna, he went down to Texas and took the head coach job down there. Um, and there's a new coach, Masaki Masamoto. He ended up taking over the program and did actually a really good job. He's still there right now currently. But yeah, I ended up transferring to Lincoln my last 2 years. My junior year, I was in the midst of like I had started a little bit, but I was behind another senior, Xavier Weston, and he was a big track guy from Rainier Beach. He was like one of the top athletes in terms of like the 100 meter, 200 meter. So I was behind him, taking a couple reps, like sharing reps with him. Um, and I did track that year, my junior year. We ended up winning state. I did long jump, triple jump, and I was kind of like the filler for like the 4x1, the 4x4. But I was more of a jumper, and so I went to districts in long jump, and I went to conference in triple jump. I ended up jumping like a 44. So that was pretty good for my first year triple jumping.
That's
And
not
then my
bad.
senior
That's
year,
not bad at all. 44.
yeah.
That's definitely, worth some rankings there amongst some of the best guys. So, um, cool. So, very, into a lot of different things, like you said. I mean, and just kind of the overall dynamic of your situation, with family situation and also like, switching schools, putting you in an ideal spot for
Mhm.
you to really kind of move along the ranks of obviously getting noticed, getting some scouts out there to look at you and giving you opportunities at the next level. So you ended up at Central Washington. How did that happen? Can you walk me through the whole recruiting process?
Yeah, crazy thing, I wasn't really highly recruited at all. I was kind of like nervous because I wasn't getting any like looks or anything like that. And I'm like, man, it's towards the end of my senior year, and I'm like, I don't have nobody like calling me, sending me letters because we have some big time scout or big time players on our team. Um, Teams from like TCU, Wazoo, Portland State, like a bunch of guys, a bunch of colleges was coming in, looking for other guys, but I just seemed to never really get nobody's attention. Um, and then one of our coaches from Central, his name is Coach Johnson. He ended up stopping by, and yeah, he just found interest into me, and so yeah, he ended up taking me on to when you go visit and scout the school and stuff like that, and then at the end of it, they ended up offering me 1/3 of a scholarship. So it was really nothing. I was the only corner out of my class to really attend Central, and so yeah, it was a different process just because it was kind of like last minute, but I ended up taking it just because it was my only offer, and so that's how I ended up at
Hey,
Central.
you take whatever you can get, man. If somebody offers you something, it's better than paying the whole way, I guess.
Right.
I mean, did you ultimately get more of a scholarship from Central or what?
Yeah, so I ended up going through a couple injuries for like 2 years, and then I was the backup 2019, and so then 2020 hit, and that's kind of like that kind of put me in the position to start like, okay, the seniors are gone. And 2020 is like just a new year, but then that's when COVID hit. But yeah, I ended up getting put on a full scholarship because for us, our thing was like, in order to be on a full scholarship, you got to be a starter, and so I was just never a starter until that opportunity hit. So
Well, I mean, of course, hey man, I understand at the very beginning, going through a bit of a rough patch, you have to, kind of solidify yourself as a starter, which does take a little bit of time. Sometimes, obviously, like in your case, I mean, you just kind of need to get healthy, which, sucks there at first, of course, but I mean, you ultimately get out there and you dominate. You end up making, all conference several times. You were All American in 2022, which is really nice. I didn't check all the lists this year, man. There's a bunch of them, but I mean, if you weren't at least honorable on one of them, you should have been, because I
right.
mean, you've been successful, throughout your time. Let's talk a little bit more about Central Washington for people that aren't as familiar. I mean, it's a D2 school. So tell me about Central Washington, just kind of as a whole, as even a student.
Mhm.
What'd you do there as a student?
So I went there for business administration. I got my BA in supply chain management. And so another thing why I went to Central, not only because of sports, but I knew it was a really good business school. And so they have a really like a lot of connections with Amazon, Boeing, a lot of the big time companies out here in Washington or the Pacific Northwest. And so um yeah, the school is like they really kept a clean campus. And that's one of the things I noticed too is like, man, it was always clean. The classes are only like maybe 10 minutes apart in terms of walking, so you don't have to walk far or nothing. It's really a college town. And this class sizes, it just varies, but it's probably like roughly around 30 to 40 students. So it's I mean, you can build that relationship with your professors. And yeah, I would say it was a really good school. Just being able to meet a lot of alumni or like a lot of people outside of the school that's in, the corporate world and stuff. So it allowed me to really make a lot of connections and kind of build my resume, not only in sports, but in the education side. And so
Cool. So,
yeah, I really liked it.
so your BA in business, is that okay? So,
Yeah,
so you end
supply
up
chain.
getting that, which is great. And hey, man, I mean, you never know. I mean, at least you have that. So, whenever football's done, you have something to fall back on. So let's get to talking a little bit more. So, let's talk about your team. I had introduced you as a defensive back. So what does that mean? Talk to me about your defense. Describe your defense and just kind of your overall role in it.
For me, I would say like for defense, I'm more of the physical, um, this aggressive defensive back because growing up, like I've always heard, corners can't tackle, and so I always wanted to pride myself on being able to tackle, because that's where you make your money at, especially well, besides the interceptions and stuff like that. I would say tackling is really important, and yeah, for me, it was kind of hard for me to develop because coming from a D2, we have coaches always coming in and out, kind of using the school as a way to move up, and so I had like maybe 4 or 5 different defensive back coaches, and so it was really tough for me to develop my skills. Um, but I just try to make the best of where I was at, and so with that, the coaches recognized that I had really good press man, and that's kind of like our defense too. We did like a lot of press man and bail and stuff, and so that's kind of how I just built my technique of just playing a lot of man. And they seen that we did like a boundary and field side, and so the better coverage corner will go on the boundary side, and so that's how I kind of like just found myself in there. But as I got better and I see myself like developing into a better defensive back, I kind of asked them like, can you move me around and just use my skill set to help our team, our defense. And so they moved me around a little bit in the inside of nickel, put me on blitzes, just kind of just show my diversity or my see how
Your
diverse
versatility. No, I
I
get
am.
that. So,
And so
uh,
yeah, with that, um yeah, and then they kind of wanted just to keep me at boundary because they seen how important it was. They're like, man, I'm really shutting down 1/3 of the field, and so it made everything more easier for the safeties to come down in the box, stop the run because we were a run stop defense first, and so yeah, that's kind of how I like established myself more on the boundary side and help the defense out.
cool. And again, part of me is just sitting here thinking, I mean, grew up kind of right outside of Seattle. And so I'm thinking to myself, probably a fan of the Legion of Boom out
Yeah.
there.
Mhm.
Is that, are those some guys you try to model yourself after or what, man? I mean,
Legion
what kind of DB are we getting? I
Yeah,
mean,
but I don't know, because when I look at the Legion of Boom, they're more like lengthy and bigger, and I'm more of like on the smaller side. So for me, I look more towards like Jair Alexander, more technical, more technically sound. And then I like Marshawn Lattimore because he's more like physical and aggressive and all up in your grill. But then I also like Denzel Ward, someone like also that's really technical and patient. And so I like more to look at the corners that's on the you can say like on the smaller side of the spectrum, which they're really not small as, you know. Um, but yeah, I kind of like just really honed in on my technique and just the physicality. And so I would say,
well,
yeah, I'm a little bit blend of everything. So,
so let's say it's not the size of the dog, but it's the size of the fight in the dog, is
all right.
basically what we're talking about here. So, and you talked a lot about some other guys that are maybe aren't as you know physically you know tall. I mean, you're how big are you? I mean, let's just get that out of the way. What's your current height and weight?
5'11", 197. But
5'11",
this,
197. Dude, that's fair. I mean, that's not terrible. I mean, it's not like you're, my size. Because, dude, if you were 5'6", I don't think you'd have many opportunities.
yeah,
So,
I
but
wouldn't pass the
dude, you're
eye test.
obviously, tall enough, big enough, strong enough to get a lot done there in the secondary, and maybe perhaps, somebody who can move around somewhat. Let's continue to talk about things. Dude, you've done a lot during your time there at Central Washington. Again, like I had said, All American, several time All Conference. A lot of changes also happening. Again, you guys were part of the GNAC, and a couple seasons ago had moved to the Lone Star Conference, which, hey, you're still doing well. I mean, you're still doing well despite the fact that you had several different coaches. You're still able to be one of the top guys in your conference. So, talk a little bit more about those changes, if you don't mind. I mean,
Yeah,
what do you feel has changed the most for you since coming in as a freshman up to now?
I would just say the biggest thing for me is just my mindset. I mean, I was dealt with adversity early on in my life, you know, with my brother, but also the injuries kind of like taught me how to take care of my body more and just like hone in on myself and my mentality. And I think once that happened, I think once the injuries, I was able to overcome that. Then 'cause I always knew I was good, but I just never had the opportunity because of the injuries. And so I was like, man, once I get this opportunity, this chance to start and play, then you know the rest is history. And so all it is like that I started learning was just repetitions. The more reps you take, the more comfortable you're gonna get, the more confident you're gonna get, and that's the biggest thing is confidence, especially as a defensive back. And so, I'll say that's what changed is just my mindset, how I take care of my body, and just the confidence. Um, and with the changes and stuff, especially with the GNAC and Lone Star, a lot of people didn't think we was gonna be able to come from Washington down to Texas and be able to, you know, play some teams. And so, just the mindset that we had as a team, you know, it's just like, let's just prove these doubters wrong, you know what I mean? We always had, like, the chips on our back. We was not the biggest team, not the fastest, but we just knew how to play together, and we just had that dog in us. And so, um, I think that's what, really, you know, it helped us move from the GNAC to the Lone Star and be able to, you know, still compete at a high level,
Yeah, I
finishing
mean,
what's
definitely an interesting time because I mean, obviously the GNAC had some other schools who decided to no longer have football, and
Mhm.
so everything just kind of dwindled down to a few different a few schools left, and it just made sense for everybody to just kind of come into the Lone Star, and like you said, I mean, still being able to match up fairly well with those guys. And again, man, I had mentioned all those accolades earlier. Dude, of everything that you have accomplished in your time there at Central Washington, what are you most proud of?
Just the relationships I built. That's the biggest thing. 'Cause at the end of the day, like, yeah, those accolades will help me, but I wanna be remembered more as the person, as, you know, someone that cared for others and, um, honed in on the relationships. And so the relationships is gonna carry me forever. I'm forever, you know, a Wildcat alumni there. And so, the bond I built with my teammates is just, man, it's one of the best things I could ask for. And so it's not, you know, it's a team sport. And so, uh, yeah, I really enjoyed my time there, just building relationships.
Gotcha. And as we reflect one more time on your time there at Central, uh, give me maybe one of your favorite moments, favorite play, favorite game. Walk me through one of those.
I'll say my favorite play was my first pick six. I never had got one in high school, but my first pick six was against Southwest Baptist, a home game. It was probably my sophomore year, and I was put in. I think it was probably like maybe the second or third quarter, I believe. But yeah, we was in the cover three. I had Bell, and the quarterback was looking towards me. And I was like, man, I hope he doesn't throw it because it's gonna be bad. And so he threw it my way. I ended up catching it. And I used to play running back in Little League, so I think my running back skills took over and ended up returning it 85 yards. And so that was probably like one of my favorite memories, just because my first, you know, pick six. So especially the score on 85 yards is pretty
Hey,
crazy.
that's pretty awesome. Kind of along those same lines. I mean, had an opportunity to get a pick six. Um, do you have much experience as a return man? I mean, dude, if you can go 85 yards, I mean, have they kicked you one or so? I mean, how's that work?
See, that's the thing too. I've always like I always got on my coaches too because I wanted to do some punt return. I was always the backup punt returner, and I had a couple returns, but um, yeah, for us, we were a punt block team, so we would try to go after, and we didn't really have much protection for the punt returner. So I think that's why they didn't put me back there, and I was more like the person blocking punts or blocking kicks and stuff. So I have a couple block kicks, but
Dude,
never.
you're also the shutdown guy too. So I mean, we don't want to lose you to some
Yeah,
freak
and
injury.
that was like our process too as well. So I'm like, man.
Yeah, it's okay. And I'm sure that you have taken some of your time, this draft season during the off season to maybe practice some of those things, which I do feel like you have that in you to offer. We've just never seen it.
Exactly.
Definitely something that will help you as you move forward in this process. Um, and Pat, as you have moved forward in this process, I feel like you've done pretty well for yourself. Attended a couple pro days,
Mhm.
and did fairly well for yourself, man. 39.5 inch verts, not anything to, we got to shout that from the rooftops, man. That's a pretty good number.
It's
10
crazy
pitch
though.
broad
I had
jump, 6.893 cone. Um, Maybe not the 40 you want. It's still 4.5, but I mean, hey, that's still respectable enough.
mhm.
Shoot, Richard Sherman didn't run that well. So, I mean, hey, that's all hey, all you need to do is get on the field. So,
I see
uh,
the
but
opportunity.
but definitely a good pro day number, some good pro day numbers. Talk about your pro day.
About that 39.5 inch vert, I had actually jumped to 41, but he had scratched me. And so I was like, man, if I would have got that 41, it would have looked even better. But going through that pro day, um, so before even that, just the training process, I was working up in Bellevue at Four Sports, with a couple of Pac-12 guys, and we had worked out 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday, from 8:30 to 3:30. And it was a whole like, system in place for the draft, for the pro days. And so, yeah, we did that Monday through Saturday, and it was a grind. I had to drive from Tacoma to Seattle every single day, and that's with traffic, that's like at least an hour 15, hour and a half, just depending on the day. So that was a grind itself, but like from that, it just prepped me, and it just allowed me, it put me in a space to where I feel like I can compete, at the next level. I'm like, man, when we're doing certain drills, I'm, doing it just as well or even better than some of the skill guys from UW, from Oregon State, Wazoo, Sac State. So it was a bunch of D1 guys there. And so to put myself in that situation, it just gave me more confidence in how I was talking about before. Confidence is everything. And so leading up to the pro day, I didn't even have a pro day because, Central, we're a small school, don't really have no scouts or nobody interested. And so I'm just networking, talking to guys. I'm like, man, is there a way you can talk to the coach that, you can invite somebody for the pro day, and then you got to go through all this stuff. It's like, oh, are you in the region? You got to find a scout that's actually, have to put your name into the pro day and stuff. And so ended up working that out. Got a pro day at Wazoo, but Wazoo, it was having some like weather conditions because it was gonna be outside. So they're like, let's just play it safe and move it to Idaho. And so ended up moving to Idaho. I went to Wazoo a couple of days before with my buddy Lincoln Victor. He's a receiver there.
Right.
Um, we ended up, just making sure we're getting our bodies prepped and right. And so for the day of, so it's two pro days combined. So there's about like 25 guys, and then there's just me, Central Washington, the only D2 guy there. And so it was nothing new though. Like I've always had this chip on my shoulder, just always like just the underdog. And so I was like, and this is nothing new, it's just another day in the office. Like I trained Monday through Saturday for this. So it's like I had a little bit of, nervousness, but if you ain't nervous, then you're not serious about it. And so ended up going through that training, and then at the end of it, people would seem like really impressed, and I was like a little impressed myself as well. But I was just like that 40, and I just wish I would have got that 4.4. But other than that, um, yeah, I had a really good field day, did good in my drills. Um, and then the other thing that kind of bummed me out was the shuttle, the 20-yard shuttle. I had to do that 4 times. And so that kind of like burnt me out. And I'm like, man, but I was still able to do, the 3 cone drill and able to hit a 6.8. But it was really just a blessing to be in that position, just to, showcase my skills in front of a bunch of scouts, and just be in that in that environment. And so yeah, just really blessed. Just yeah, just to get my name out there slowly but surely. And then after that, um, a couple scouts, not scouts, but agents, were interested in me and started calling me. And so that's kind of how, I got myself an agent after that. So
Well, I definitely feel like you've put yourself in a decent position. You got yourself an agent now, which obviously, Young Money's going to help you out, so you're good. They'll take care of you. And I feel like you did a good enough job. Obviously, dude, you're a D2 guy who's running just as well, if not better, than a whole bunch of D1 guys. So, I mean, it definitely is great to be able to say, hey, I'm amongst these other guys. Now what? So, cool, Pat. So, I do want to take at least a brief moment to see if there's anything else that we need to know about this Patrick Rogers guy, other than the fact that he's a good football player. Is there anything else about yourself that you want to share? Hobbies, interests, special talents,
Mm.
anything you want to share, man, before we wrap things up?
Yeah, with so many siblings, I had a little sister, she was born deaf. And so with that, I had to, learn some ASL. And so I took some college courses of, ASL classes. And so I know a little bit of ASL now. And that kind of brought me into a whole new, world, and being able to communicate with her and other people in that community uh is really really cool to see and to know like a second language now. And so I would say that's like a cool fact about me. I'm really into bowling now too. I've been going bowling a lot, and so I'm pretty competitive. I'm bowling about 180. I'm trying to get to 200. If I can get on average 200, I'll consider myself pretty good. So um,
That's not bad. I mean, 180 is fair.
yeah,
Obviously 200 is better, but 180 is, I know it's better
not
than
bad at
me.
all.
I think my average is like maybe it's less than 150 if I'm being honest. It's not really all that good. Throwing a few
Above
gutters here
100
and
though.
there.
Anything
Um,
above 100 is not bad.
Yeah. But hey, man, knowing some, sign language obviously is great. A wonderful, avenue where you can, use that in the community. It's a great, outreach opportunity. And it's great. I mean, not everybody knows it. So, I mean, if you can use that in any fashion, I definitely feel like that's great that you can get out there, and be a part of that. So, Pat, do want to wrap up our time. It's been fun, chatting with you about all these things, and do you feel like you have a great resume for people to look back on and to, maybe go back and look at that tape and see that you're such a great player. So, but go ahead and wrap up with your final thoughts. Talk to all these teams out there and tell them why they need to take a chance on this D2 guy out of Central Washington.
Man, I would say you're gonna get somebody that's just always wanting to learn, always wanting to grow, like just never satisfied. And that's why I'm here today because, man, I know how great I can be. And yeah, you won't be disappointed taking a chance on me. And something I do want to send a message is just embrace the hard times. Just never, because a lot of people nowadays want to, run away from failures or like the tough times, but those is what molds you into being a great person, in the future, in the long run. And so it's like nothing in life, or I would say nothing that's good for you comes easy. And so when it's hard, then you're
Amen to that,
suffering.
man.
So
Uh, yeah, definitely a guy who's a hard worker, who knows what it means to be a successful player, and who can also be a quality asset to a team, whether it be a shutdown corner or a great asset on special teams. Definitely look for Patrick Rogers at corner, defensive back, whatever you want to call him. He'll even play running back if you let him. He's out of Central Washington. Nice to have you on, sir.
yeah, thank you. Appreciate you.
No problem, man. Take care and good interview.
Appreciate you.